Welcome back to Historical Veracity, the channel where we dive deep into historical narratives, theories, and the fascinating intricacies of human development. Today, we're taking a critical look at Yuval Noah Harari's best-selling book, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, focusing on what we've identified as a fundamental issue, the failure of language analysis. Let's unravel how Harari's interpretation of language shapes his historical and societal assertions, and where it may fall short. The failure of understanding language in Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. The book's allure does not lie in its historical claims, but in Yuval Noah Harari's language analysis and the radical assertions he derives from it. However, the analysis is fundamentally flawed, rendering the radical claims and their appeal likewise baseless. Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, is a widely popular book covering a broad range of topics, achieving great success and much criticism. The book's appeal, in my opinion, is not in the variety of its subjects, but in the radical conclusions Harari draws from his analysis of language. Harari argues that human language is not unique, as animals also have languages, but human language is special in its fictive nature. This leads to Harari's radical conclusion that foundational concepts in human life are nothing more than fiction. Harari's central argument relies on a specific understanding of human language. Given that Harari's language analysis is flawed, the conclusions drawn from it are also flawed. Harari's understanding and analysis of the term language appear in a chapter on the linguistic revolution, not coincidentally at the book's beginning, forming the basis for Harari's significant claims. This video examines how well Harari understands what language is. According to Harari, the linguistic revolution occurred between 70,000 and 30,000 years ago, leading Homo sapiens to spread across the globe, develop new technologies, and become nature's ruler, transitioning from being one of many species to its master. This mutation of the tree of knowledge, namely language, is described by Harari as not being the world's first language, as all animals have a language. Even insects, like bees and ants, can communicate sophisticatedly, informing each other where to find food. Harari's thesis is that the uniqueness and significance of the linguistic revolution were not in conveying information about reality, but in discussing non-existent things, thus creating a new reality. Legends, myths, gods, and religions appeared for the first time, to our best knowledge, with the linguistic revolution. According to Harari, the uniqueness of language lies in its ability to speak of fictions. Before this, Homo sapiens could form groups of up to 150 individuals, the natural size at most, due to the impossibility of maintaining a stable group without some intimate acquaintance among its members. The fictive language allowed for the creation of larger societies, as it enabled belief in myths existing only in the shared imagination of humans. Harari continues, stating that to the best understanding of historians, there are no gods, nations, corporate entities, money, laws, or justice in the world, except in the collective imagination of humans. Harari's principal claim is that there is no difference between believing in the existence of spirits and demons, money, corporations, the state of Israel, and human rights. All these exist only in our imagination, and are expressions of fiction, that is, entities with no objective material existence. In the chapter on the agricultural revolution, Harari clarifies the distinction between objective, existing independently of human consciousness, subjective, dependent on individual consciousness and ceasing to exist with its disappearance, and intersubjective, something that exists within the communication network connecting the subjective consciousness of different individuals. The alteration or disappearance of one consciousness does not affect it, but the alteration or disappearance of all the connected consciousnesses would change or erase it. Almost all significant concepts in human history are intersubjective: law, money, religion, the state, the nation. Harari ends the chapter with the pessimistic statement, "Thus, there is no escape from the imagined order. When we break out of the prison's walls and run towards freedom, we are running into the courtyard of a larger prison." With this radical perspective at the foundation of the book, I wish to contest it. As mentioned above, Harari's claims about fundamental human institutions rely on his analysis of language. It follows that if the language analysis is mistaken, so are these claims. And since these are the book's central claims, and they are not historical claims, it amounts to a refutation that could dramatically alter the book's entire appraisal. Harari's fundamental claim, namely that other animals have language, and that human language differs only in its fictive nature, is fundamentally flawed. As far as we know, only one creature in nature has language: humans. Harari provides an example of another animal's language, the vervet monkeys, which have a call meaning careful, an eagle, and another meaning careful, a lion. While this sounds nice, Harari is mistaken from the first step. He talks about language and casually uses the term meaning, but in a linguistic context, meaning is at the heart of the issue and is a complex, profound, and extensive matter. We ask a simple question about the meaning of that call. Do vervet monkeys truly know what an eagle is, that is, a predatory bird with certain characteristics that define eagle? The same applies to lion. It appears on the surface that Harari understands that a vervet monkey does not truly know what an eagle is, which is why he writes a call whose meaning is careful, an eagle. But where does this meaning come from? From Harari himself. As a human language speaker, he is the one projecting human language onto the vervet's call, interpreting the monkey's behavior and assigning it meaning, explaining it in conceptual terms. But does the monkey have the concept of eagle or careful? It seems that even Harari understands that it does not. Moreover, if one were to argue that we could reduce the interpretation to a call meaning careful, danger from above, below, the problem would not be solved because understanding the concepts of danger and above or below requires a broad conceptual awareness that cannot be attributed to beings without true language. What is essential to human language is its conceptual nature. Words are not merely sequences of sounds, they express concepts, which convey a broad content. In the eagle example, the concept eagle includes the recognition of the bird's world to which the eagle belongs, serving as a predatory bird, having feathers and a beak, and so on. Hence, there cannot be a language with only one concept, and the holder and user of one concept must understand a broader system of concepts within which the concept integrates. For instance, an eagle is a bird, so one must understand that bird is a concept encompassing many species and differs from other animal species, like mammals. And if an eagle preys on snakes and rodents, then one needs to understand the concepts of snakes and rodents, and so forth. The conceptual knowledge is vast. It is not necessary to know all of it to use a concept correctly in certain contexts, but basic knowledge of the information embodied in the concept's use is indeed required. Additionally, knowing the conceptual system allows for its application in new cases, thus enabling the expansion of knowledge. For example, someone familiar with birds, upon encountering a certain bird for the first time, could determine if it belongs to groups already known, make comparisons, expand their knowledge, and possibly even create a new concept for the conceptual system. The fundamental use of language is in sentences that express thoughts, judgments, and sentences are fundamentally composed of a connection between a concept and an object, subject. Messi is a football player is an example of a sentence where the first part, Messi, denotes a specific object through a proper name, while the second part, a football player, predicate, is a concept attributed to the object. The connection between a concept and an object is what creates a claim or thought, a judgment. The concept football player, in turn, requires recognition of a whole conceptual repository, such as games in general, types of sports and their differences, the game of football, football leagues, other football players, the rules of football, and more. A proper name like Messi is one way to denote an object, but one can also denote an object using a language's definite article, like, this person is a football player, or pointing to the object and stating football player. But these are additional ways to do the same thing, namely, to connect an object and a concept. In any case, the use of a concept is essential to create a sentence and thought, and the use of a concept requires knowledge of a complete system of concepts embodied within it, and related conceptual systems, and so on. It's noteworthy that Harari attributes to vervet monkeys what seems like a rudimentary use of language, superficially legitimate to attribute to animals, namely, the use of danger calls. But now it becomes clear that this is a fundamental mistake, as it involves attributing conceptual knowledge whose understanding and use require a broad conceptual repertoire and extensive knowledge. Language is not a sequence of sounds that trigger instinctive responses, but rather, words in language embody knowledge and a wide range of concepts, as well as many possible uses for them to create new, complex claims, and more. This characteristic, essential to any language, is called compositionality, and it is a clear hallmark of a conceptual system. Because concepts are general, they allow for expansion and new, original, and enriching uses. Every child learning a language demonstrates this feature and shows originality in their linguistic use. Since no animal in nature can be attributed with such a broad understanding and use of a conceptual system, Harari fundamentally errs in his projection. Moreover, when a speaker of a language makes a claim, we attribute to them a belief in that claim, which in turn presupposes an understanding of the concepts involved. For instance, when someone claims that Messi is a football player, we attribute to them a belief in that statement, which requires attributing to them an understanding of the related concepts, as described earlier. We do not attribute beliefs and the like to animals, and not without reason. As mentioned above, even Harari himself does not attribute conceptual and judgmental abilities to the vervet monkey. He only attributes his own interpretation to the sounds produced by the monkey. The reason for this is straightforward and astonishing that it seems to have escaped Harari's notice, skipping over it without realizing he is leaping over an abyss. The foundational component of language knowledge is conceptual recognition. Those who know it understand the concepts, know how to apply them to new cases, and more. The conceptual ability is a central feature of a language speaker. It's important to highlight that we're not just talking about the ability to use language but also the ability to think. In his thesis, Harari assumes a separation between language and thought, making language appear as a kind of skill for externalizing thoughts that already exist in living beings regardless of language. This too is a fundamental mistake. There is no non-conceptual thought, and anyone who has a conceptual system has language. This mistake leads Harari to talk about animal languages as a comparison to human language. The important point is, you cannot separate language from thought. They are two sides of the same coin. Just like language, thought is constructed from concepts. Without the capability for conceptual thought, there is no thought as there is no language. Harari interprets all information transfer as language, and since human language is fundamentally a means of transferring information, he sees no significant difference between it and the ways animals transfer information. Let's start with an analogy. We are familiar with certain species of bees that live in a societal hive, a society divided into classes where each individual faithfully performs its role, a society that establishes a beautifully designed structure, the hive. Does this allow us to draw a good analogy to complex structures created by humans, such as buildings, art, etc.? The answer is definitely not. While a human structure is the result of premeditated thought and planning, where the entire object and its characteristics are the fruits of early planning and realization, and there are humans who hold the idea of the structure before and after its creation. There is not a single bee that holds an idea of itself playing a role in the life of the hive, and certainly none holds an idea of the hive in its mind and imagination, neither before nor after construction. The complex structures in the animal world, like the hive and the bee society, are fully explained through individual actions well explained by the laws of natural selection. Not so for human structures and societies. Let's take the discussion a step further. Whoever has language has not only conceptual ability and knowledge, but also knows that he knows. That is, possesses another fundamental characteristic of language and thought, self-awareness. Does the vervet monkey have self-awareness? Does it know that it is a monkey and that Harari is a human? Obviously not, because if it did, it would have language and thought. Therefore, the vervet monkey does not know that it is a monkey or a vervet monkey, just as it does not have a concept of an eagle, a lion, or anything else. In the absence of conceptual ability, which is at the base of language, there is neither thought nor self-awareness. Here, the human ability for reflection is important, namely the capacity for internal contemplation of one's concepts and thoughts, a unique ability inherently related to self-awareness, which allows a person to also organize claims and concepts, expand them, deduce new claims, reach higher levels of abstraction, organize socially in complex ways, establish institutions, and more. This reflexive ability, coming along with conceptual cognitive ability, is unique to humans and enables us to expand our social political organization based on legitimate expansions that are not fiction. As mentioned, through hundreds of millions of years of evolution, animals have developed ways to transmit signals such as warnings about dangers, the location of food, etc. But these behaviors are mechanisms of evolution and nothing more. Harari's central argument seems not to suffer from what appears to be anthropomorphism, humanization, namely projecting human language features onto animals. Harari does not use anthropomorphism to attribute thinking abilities and self-awareness to them, but rather reduces human language to the instinctive communication system of animals. thereby stripping it of all its qualities that make it a language, like conceptual understanding, thought, compositionality, self-awareness. As I've shown above, this reduction is flawed and superficial. Moreover, from this reduction, Harari derives his radical conclusions. Understanding that the linguistic revolution is a profound matter that transformed humans into thinking, intelligent beings with a complex conceptual system for perceiving reality and self-awareness, one also understands that this revolution allowed humans not only to build a conceptual system that enables the perception of complex reality, but also the ability to create human facts and institutions, which are the last things that could be claimed as fictions like demons and spirits are fictions. Belief in demons, spirits, and perhaps also in gods, can be considered fictional without Harari's radical reasoning, based on the fact that there is no widely accepted empirical data corroborating those beliefs. Many theologians have struggled to legitimize the concept of God precisely because of this fact, and their success is questionable. In the above terms, given that there is no tangible object that falls under a concept, that is, an object that embodies it, the concept can be considered empty. In contrast, capitalism, money, the rule of law, rights, etc., are not beliefs of this kind. They are based on solid human facts. The value of money, for example, stems from the real value it represents. And the fact is that excessive money printing leads to economic crises. The rule of law establishes agreed procedures and processes for managing society. And there are empirical ways to assess the value of one rule of law over another. Nationalism is an extension of the family and tribe, which were the basis for ethnic political organization in ancient times and returned to become a natural basis for state organization in the era of masses starting from the late 18th century. All these have a broad factual basis. Peugeot, mentioned by Harari, is an excellent example of an institutional organization that is validated by the fact that consumers buy its cars, money enters the organization's coffers, and if the company is profitable, it will succeed, and if not, it will fail. In other words, there are countless agreed factual data that establish this institution, and they are facts, whether someone believes in them or not. It's not about fanciful imagination. Of course, Harari did not innovate here. Human thought and life are familiar with empty concepts that raise the question of whether there is an object that embodies them and gives them validity or not. But Harari does not understand that the ability of human language to talk and think about what does not exist, fiction in his terms, is essential to the language of a thinking being with a capacity for concepts and reflection, who expands his concepts out of his intelligence, thereby creating science, mathematics, an immense scope of information, efficient organizational concepts, abstraction, and more, all interconnected. In short, the linguistic revolution allowed humanity to make legitimate conceptual expansions, enabling the creation of human facts that form the basis of human society. These will remain facts even if the human species were to become extinct. In conclusion, in the chapter, The Superfluousness of the Human, in Harari's sequel, Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow, Harari continues his effort to reduce humanity by attacking consciousness, but the critique from this article applies to that chapter too, as there is no way to reduce thought. The failure in analyzing the concept of language and hence thought continues in the sequel. Moreover, this article does not delve into a detailed refutation of Harari's claims, but those familiar with the book can immediately see that the deep failure in analyzing language dismantles the validity of Harari's other claims, and therefore I leave the detailed critique to the readers. Furthermore, even the writing of the book by Harari, a book that presupposes mastery over general concepts, contradicts Harari's foundational claim, and the fact that Harari frequently makes value judgments in the book seems odd for someone who fervently claims the fictitiousness of such judgments. One might have expected Harari to be faithful to his claim that there is no freedom, just a larger prison yard. However, the accumulated impression is that Harari's radical claims are merely a tactic, perhaps unconsciously intended to market his views, expressed from an external viewpoint to the prison, a fictitious perspective according to Harari's own thesis. To market this thesis, it was necessary to eliminate its competitors through a flawed analysis of language. Thank you for watching Historical Veracity. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications on our latest videos. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know what other topics you'd like us to explore. Until next time, keep seeking the truth behind the history.